I'm Chad Hoover, and this week I'm in Racine, Wisconsin, chasing bass and pike and trophy salmon.
Get up and put on the coffee. You know the sunlight won't last. Making my way to the country. I'm gonna catch a big old bass.
Got him. That is a spud. Yeah! Oh my God! Booyah! Good morning, everybody. I am in Racine, or Racine, depending on where you're from or how you say it, because people from here say both. So I'm gonna go with Racine. We are in a little town of Burlington on Browns Lake. We're gonna get out there and see if we can't catch some fish and have some fun. I chose this lake because it's a cool little lake with a lot of docks. It's ultra clear water, and I'm really starting to try to challenge myself to catch more fish in clear water. And so when I get started fishing a new place, it's always cool to kind of fish it by yourself. You know, and sometimes you just like that alone time on the water. Not a trophy, but a connection. And these fish have been finicky in this shallow water, so that's good. So one technique that I've used successfully for years, whether it's over flooded timber or in this case, submerged grass that doesn't come all the way to the surface, is a technique that I call fishing upside down. It starts with a long cast, raise your rod tip up and flutter the bait down, give it a count to the top of the grass. So in this case, I'm doing a 4 count. And once I get to that count, then I put my rod tip in the water. I can reel a little faster. If the fish hits the lure, I get a water load on the line and I rip it up out of the water and set the hook. Now, the other thing that's great about that is it keeps that lure at a controlled depth. Whereas if you cast your lure out, you let it hit the water, you raise your rod tip and you're fishing it, it's on a constant climb. So you're not really able to know exactly what depth you're getting your bites at. And so if you want a pinpoint presentation, I count my guides. Oh, there's fish. I count my guides down, and then I can get to the point where I can do a controlled depth presentation. That's a technique I like to call fishing upside down. It's a way to control the lure depth and precision fish over submerged wood, rock, vegetation, grass, and it works like a champ. Another great thing about the fish it upside down technique is when you have grass that's breaking free from the bottom. By casting in a lane and getting your lure between that stuff, once you get your rod tip and your line below the surface, it's free of all of that debris and you're running your lure just below it without getting hung up. So, you know, evolution enabled me to pee standing, and I think I'm far enough away from each and every one of these thousands of houses to just whoop it out and get a little more comfortable. Oh man, I had given up on fish being in this trashy stuff and thought, oh, I gotta go get back in that clean water around the rocks, and there goes a 4-pounder. Oh man, let me see if I can get him to eat it. Fishing new lakes in places you've never been is a double-edged sword. It's the best part about what I do, and sometimes it's the worst part, but the game is what keeps me in it. It's the cat and mouse scenario of trying to figure out what's gonna trigger that fish, what I'm gonna be able to do to get it to eat. Oh, it ate it. God, how did it not get hooked? Cat and mouse, baby, cat and mouse. Oh, he ate it again. It's rewarding, but it's even more rewarding when you can see the fish. It's even more rewarding when you know that that fish knows you're there. And for the most part, it's gotten spooked, and you're able to kind of back off, let it relax, change up your game plan, and still dupe it into biting your lure. It's eaten my lure twice, and I didn't stick it. So I switched it up to a fluke to see if I can get it to eat a fluke. It's not interested in the fluke. So I'm gonna go back to the old jerkbait. Got him. Nice. Boy, that was fun. And talk about, even though it's not a monster fish, it was intense. Got that fish to eat like 3-4 different times and finally got it to come around and eat the jerkbait. You know, it doesn't matter if the fish is a giant or not when you sight cast to it after 3 times of the fish flashing at your lure or mouthing it and you didn't hook it and you're still able to convince it to eat. That's a victory. That's fun. It doesn't matter if they're 2 pounds or 10 pounds. I'll take that all day long. It's a good time. Okay guys, so we're gonna head out and leave Browns Lake in the rearview mirror, but because we're heading out with my buddy Brian and we're gonna do some trolling, I've decided to throw a line out behind me, use my mega rod holder, lock it in, and I figured, hey, since I'm paddling to the boat ramp and I'm not fishing anyway, I might as well fish my way back and see if we can't hook up a pike by getting our troll on. Oh well, there's some grass beds right there. Maybe we'll get lucky here. Hopefully the lure stays just above it, nicking the tops, and a hungry pike decides he wants to take a bite. Oh man, there are some giants in here. Holy crap. Whew. I just saw an easy 5-pounder, maybe even pushing 6-pound largemouth right there on that flat. I'm actually gonna reel this lure in and spin around and see if I can't get a good look at that fish. So here's the thing, I am not a big trolling angler from the kayak, but a good buddy of mine back home actually told me something that made a lot of sense. He's like, you're out there, you're fishing, you might as well have a lure in the water, and sometimes what'll happen is what the fish hit will confirm for you that it's something you need to switch to. Look at this. So the whole time I've been trolling, I've actually had a fish and didn't know it. So, you know, success on the troll. So what I did is I decided to troll a lure that I catch a lot of fish on back home in our clear water. And it's a slim profile Rapala jerkbait that only gets a few feet below the surface. I knew that I could run it across the top of the grass, and I confirmed that the bass would eat it because when I decided to reel my line in, there was a bass on it. I'm gonna be quick about getting him the dink drop that he deserves by drop that dink. Now let me stand up and see if I can't find this Mo Daddy over here. And I wonder if he'd hit this jerkbait. His little sister just did. So part of the process of getting out and challenging yourself as an angler is to take your time on the water chest of knowledge and information and challenge yourself to fish waters you've never fished before and see if you can make adjustments to catch the fish. There's one. A small victory is that I trolled and figured out that they would eat a lure that I thought they would eat in shallow water, but I hadn't taken the initiative to cast it. And then I followed that up with a cast and caught another fish. They like that minnow profile, and that is a gorgeous little fish. But he gets the same thing as little cousin got. The dink drop. The takeaway from this is that you have to get out on the water. You have to challenge yourself in tough conditions to really improve as an angler. Swim area, fish area. So I like these outings in new places with new challenges, without any assistance, without other anglers to help me out, because it really makes me focus on dipping into my pool of knowledge, but at the same time, having an open mind, watching what's going on, and seeing if I can't figure out something new to add to that pool. Oh, here we go. Little snot rocket hammer handle pike. I'm so excited about going trolling for salmon in Lake Michigan that I can hardly think straight. And so I've been dealing with that challenge as well. So we're gonna load up and head to the big lake. You know, one of my other passions is photography. And I've gotten so busy with everything that I'm doing, I haven't had as much of an opportunity to do it. But one of the great things about Racine is I just found myself kind of daydreaming about coming back to some of the places, not even to fish, but to just break out the long lens and to get some of the shots of all this natural beauty and just the diversity of scenery here. All right guys, so here's the deal. I love this place, but I'm not from here. So what I did is I enlisted the help of Miss Carrie Grieving. She is with Real Racine, and she's gonna tell you a little bit more about why you should come to Racine, and you know, the fact that you'll buy them a beer if they come.
It is more than just the city of Racine when you come to Racine County. As you've been seeing, we have fishing, we have water, big lakes, small lakes, streams, rivers, everything that you need. This is an outdoorsman's paradise.
And you've got water parks, like in the park, water parks. Hello everybody, today I am fishing beautiful Lake Michigan. I'm here in Racine, Wisconsin, and I'm gonna be fishing with Brian Staife. Brian, so where I'm from, the shad bite is in full effect. So are we gonna be throwing shad patterns today? Because I already got one tied on.
No.
All right, well, if the shad bite's not on, then the crawfish bite has definitely got to be on. And this HD crawl is like deadly on crawfish pattern. No?
No.
So no crawfish?
No crawfish. No.
All right, so no crawfish, no shad. Then the buzzbait bite has got to be on fire. This gold blade, brim-colored buzzbait has got to kill him.
Listen, I got you on this one.
What do you mean you got me?
I got you. I got all the stuff. Put your stuff away. I'll take care of you.
So I don't need to bring anything?
Nothing.
I just get to show up and bow up. It's a little bit awkward to be a guy who fishes for a living on a boat full of fishing gear and you have no clue what's going on. If you gave me this boat and pointed to where I needed to go and said, go out and catch a fish, I honestly probably couldn't catch a fish right now to save my life because I wouldn't even know how to set any of this stuff up. So this is truly a unique experience for me where I'm just gonna be the sponge, soaking up the information, being a deckhand, doing what Brian tells me to do, and bring you guys a new type of fishing. The idea is to learn enough about this that I can gear up and maybe come back here and do this solo from the kayak.
So the setup we're running here is a typical trolling setup for two guys. In Wisconsin, we can run 3 rods a guy. Our trolling pattern we want set up like, think of it as a V, where we've got our deepest rods on the downriggers, closest to the boat, centered. That way when a fish hits and starts coming up in the water column, there's nothing to get in its way. As we go out from there, we've got dipsy divers, and the dipsy divers not only get the baits down, but off to the side a little bit. And thirdly, the most outside rods, we've got planer boards to get them way out, up on the surface. So we're not only trying to keep that V shape, but we're also trying to cover different depths in the water too. The reason we have all the line counters on the trolling rods is one rod may be hot, and we want to be able to duplicate that with all the other rods. Not only with the bait, but how far down it is in the water column, maybe how far back it is from the boat, because the water here can be quite clear. So a lot of times, the further away from the boat you can get those baits, the better off you are.
You know, Brian, sometimes though when the water's clear, the fish can see me on the boat. They say, oh my God, I love that guy's show. I'd love to be on it. And then they fight over getting to the bait. That's the only problem. All right, so we got the first fish. Brian did all that work. I'm not gonna take the first fish when he did all the work, and I will, however, operate the net professionally.
I don't even know if we need it. It's a
I don't think we
guy.
need a net for this one. We could for dramatic appeal. Nice.
So that is a little coho.
So what's the size limit?
10 inches.
And so 10 inches.
So that's a legal
fish.
fish.
So that's a legal
Yep.
fish.
And that's actually, I mean, coho are some of the best eating, and one this
Yeah.
size, I mean, you know, we're hoping for some bigger ones, but
Yeah.
hey, this will eat, so
Perfect.
awesome.
Let's do it.
All right,
You have a cooler to keep them?
I do, yep. I'll just have you undo the bungee cords up there, and there we go. There's a fish on that one. Just keep the rod tip up, put a constant pressure on them, and drag them in.
Is this a little bigger fish or am I just a wuss?
I think it's a little bit bigger.
It's pretty impressive that folks have figured out how to catch these fish like this, because there's one word for a fish deeper than 40 foot when it comes to me. You know what that word is, Brian?
What's that?
Safe. Those fish are safe.
Oh, we just popped off right when he got to the surface. Shoot.
Well, sorry about that.
That's all right. The hard thing to get used to doing this, and I didn't want to get in your way while you were at work, is the lead core line. When you kind of do the pump and bring in, it gets a belly in it.
Okay, yeah.
So it feels weird, but I usually just keep the tip up and just keep cranking.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
See, that's what you do. You just ski it in. You don't pump.
There we go. Good deal, man.
Cool.
Not a huge one, but that will eat very well.
Good eater.
Absolutely.
Thinking about recipes. We'll be right back with more kayak bass fishing, well, actually, salmon trolling action. You're not gonna wanna miss it. I got a fish, so this is cool. I gotta remember to maintain pressure and not pump. You know, pumping's kind of a natural thing for me, the type of fishing that I'm doing, but with this lead core, you don't pump, you just maintain pressure. I can feel him back there just head shaking and pulling, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie and tell you my hand ain't cramping. Holy crap. There he is.
One more time.
Yeah!
Yeah, buddy.
Nice! If that fish came in and it was little, I was gonna feel very inadequate, but it's a big fish. Look at that. You know, one of the things that I've started doing over the last couple of years is venturing north. Not something I really did a lot of before I retired from the military. You know, we've got great fishing in the South, but we don't have the diversity of species. We don't have big water trolling for salmon. It's just a really cool type of fishing. It's social. The conversational stuff that's going on while we're fishing has made this amazing. So Brian, everybody that fishes multi-species enjoys certain things about each species. What's your favorite species of fish to pursue?
Well, my absolute favorite fish to pursue is the muskie. So much so that my father-in-law and I started a tackle company, East Oxford Salt Tackle, and we've got just about anything a muskie angler would use, from a glide bait, bucktails, topwater baits, and of course the Medusa, which is a three-tailed kind of creature bait.
For me, bass fishing, obviously my favorite type of strike is a topwater strike. So, but for you, for muskie fishing, what is your favorite take? What's the one you fish for?
What I really enjoy is having a fish, like you said, come into the boat, because muskies are notorious for that. You probably up your catch percentage by 50% or better if you're good at what we call, in muskie fishing, figure eighting the fish, where you make a figure eight pattern, and you've got this fish that's so dialed into the bait and just wants to eat so bad that it doesn't even care that the boat's there, and that fish, 9 times out of 10, just T-bones it.
So that's like a topwater strike. It's like sight fishing, topwater, and flipping all tied into one.
Yep.
And do you find that you have that, oh, that joker started skying right out of the gate. Look at that. I think that was bigger than the one I caught. It's definitely putting up more of a fight.
Oh, we're almost, all right, we're into the lead core. 30 more yards. Whew. Give it a rest there.
Sometimes you're just glad you're not the one with the rod. This looks a lot like work.
It is.
Oh, look at the boils.
There he is.
Yeah. You know, every now and then, the stars align and everything is just, that's a big fish. You just know it. There's a feeling in the air. There's like a little crispness right now in the air. The sun's going down, so the water's getting that inky black. And then that rod just bows over. And I was like, oh my goodness. 16-pound steelhead is just, man, it's like a unicorn. And to be on the boat with somebody who catches their personal best is just amazing, man. I attribute it to this golden horseshoe that I have lodged in my rectum. Oh yeah. Dude, look at that.
That's awesome.
So the primary reason for trolling for salmon from the boat was so that I could attempt to duplicate that from the kayak. The folks in this area pointed me to a guy named Rob Wendell, who they said is the ultimate guru when it comes to kayak fishing for salmon.
I started kayak fishing mainly because I was just sick of being on shore. So I went out and bought a kayak and just strapped a couple rod holders onto it and went out and caught salmon like instantly. And at that point I was pretty much hooked. If you're gonna fish out in the open lake, there's just so much water to cover to find fish. A spot could be a mile long or longer. So the only efficient way to do it is by trolling. So I took what I knew from a boat and adapted it all to fishing from a kayak. Downsizing things and making it just easier to use and a little bit lighter.
One of the best parts about the trip with Rob is even though it was short, there was a lot that I learned in that short time. I followed Rob and he was telling me about his setup and he was telling me about the things that he's taken into account. He was showing me on his electronics. He was showing me with his lure setup exactly what he was doing. And it was pretty impressive, the complexity of technique. We didn't go super crazy with gear. I kept it pretty simple with a trolling bait and a dipsy diver. And honestly, in less than an hour, I hooked up my first coho, got it to the boat. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. And it broke off, broke my heart, and I had my first coho salmon right there at the side of the boat, probably a chunky 5 or 6 pounder. So I had the shot, just couldn't make it happen. But luckily, I was fishing with the guru and he came in behind me, had a double hook up and put one of those coho salmon in the boat.
So this is a coho salmon. It hit a red dodger and fly. This is a pretty nice sized fish. This is about 8 feet down, like 4 or 5 pounds, good fish, really good eating fish. And these are stocked in Lake Michigan, so you don't have to feel bad about keeping them. They don't really naturally reproduce that much. They're basically for us to catch and eat, and eating doesn't really get much better in these. They're as good as it gets. And there's a lot of them here in Racine. And they're a lot of fun to catch.
Well guys, that's gonna do it for my time here. Literally, I haven't even left yet, and I already can't wait to get back. I'm just gonna sit here and watch that sun sink the rest of the way below the horizon, and watch the sky turn purple and orange and green and gold, and just be thankful that this is the life I get to live and the country that I get to live in for places like Racine.